You ever wake up thinking the world you left behind would still be waiting for you when you came home only to find out the people you trusted the most were the ones who'd gutted it while you weren't looking? Yeah, that's how I learned my family's pond. The one that had survived wars, droughts, and 4 generations couldn't survive the HOA. While I was deployed in Gaza, some woman in a white Bentley, smiling like she just won the lottery, watched as a crew drained every drop of water from that pond, left it cracked and empty, all in the name of neighborhood aesthetics and safety. Let me back up a sec because you gotta understand what that pond meant to me. My mom spent the last weeks of her life fussing over those koi fish planting lilies, making me promise I'd take care of it while she faded away in a hospital bed. She said, "It's not just a pond, Jackson. It's the heart of everything we built here." So when I got that frantic video call from Phoenix Martinez, my buddy back home, I knew something was wrong before I even saw the screen. Phoenix's face was full of worry, all pixelated and shaky, but the real gut punch was what was behind him. Not water, just dead mud and bones of what used to be a living, breathing part of our land. "Jackson, man, I'm sorry," he kept saying. I tried to stop them, but they had all this paperwork. The HOA called it a safety violation, said standing water without fences was too risky. So they just pumped it out. You know that cold, numb feeling you get when you know you're about to lose your grip on something that matters more than you ever realized? That's what hit me right then. I was fighting to protect other people's homes in the desert, while my own was getting picked apart by folks who'd probably never gotten their boots muddy a day in their lives. So I called the HOA. My hands shaking with rage, demanded to know how they could destroy private property while I was overseas. Scarlett Morrison answered all fake sweet, talking about community safety regulations and how the board voted unanimously for compliance. She even threw in a jab. "Perhaps if you were more involved in community affairs instead of traveling, you'd know about our revitalization project." That stung, but what bothered me more was her tone, like this was personal, not just business. Phoenix called me back. Voice tight, said Scarlett had been trying to buy my mom's property ever since the funeral, even doubled her offer. That pond wasn't just water, it was leverage. Couldn't sleep that night thinking about my granddad's stories, how he'd built that pond by hand during the war, how it became the gathering place for the whole block. He used to say the city ran the main water valve right under our old oak tree, and as long as it's on our land, nobody can mess with us. I always thought it was just a story till now. So I called River Chen, the only plumber in Willowbrook who remembered the old systems, left a message about the valve under the oak tree, hoping I didn't sound crazy. River called back, voice low and serious. Said, "Jackson, your granddad wasn't kidding. That valve is the master control for 6 blocks. Technically, it's on your land, which means you own it. But I don't think Scarlett knows." I realized then this was bigger than a pond, it was about control. If Scarlett wanted her revitalization, she needed that water access. I dug into the HOA's meeting. Minutes found out Scarlett had stacked the board with her own people right after I shipped out. Replaced the old guard, rammed through emergency safety rules targeting my property. The one board member who voted no, old Mrs. Sage Thompson, had lived in Willowbrook longer than anyone and smelled something rotten from the start. We filed a complaint, documented everything, the history, the photos, the deeds. But Scarlett struck back fast, released a glossy media campaign showing my drained pond as a child hazard. Put ominous music on it, made me look like some absentee soldier risking kids' lives for nostalgia. Even the news ate it up. She came off as the reasonable one, worried about the community, while the poor deployed vet just couldn't keep up. You know what I mean? That kind of spin works on folks who don't know you. But Mrs. Thompson had my back, reached out with stories and photos of how the pond saved the neighborhood during drought, how kids played there for decades without trouble. Sheriff Dakota Wells, another vet, called and said, "Jackson, this stinks like a bureaucratic ambush I'm in if you need boots on the ground." Even some of Scarlett's former supporters started to question her. When she called a big HOA meeting to shut me down, Mrs. Thompson stood up and asked her on a live stream in front of the whole neighborhood why all those geological surveys focused on my land and why they waited till I deployed. Scarlett tried to bluff, but her voice cracked. People noticed. Then came the twist nobody saw coming. As the water table dropped from my pond being drained, River noticed something shiny buried under Scarlett's rose garden. Sheriff Wells got a court order, dug up a waterproof box with the belongings of Marcus Kane, an investigative journalist who'd gone missing 3 years ago. Turns out Marcus was digging into Scarlett's property deals. He'd found financial ties between her city officials and big development corporations. In the box, there was a recorded call, Scarlett talking about solving the Kane problem before he publishes. The sheriff brought in the FBI, and suddenly my battle over a pond had turned into a full-blown federal investigation. As the story broke, the neighborhood that had once called me reckless started seeing Scarlett for who she really was, a developer using tragedy to mask land grabs. The press ran with it. HOA president accused of murder and real estate fraud. Public opinion flipped overnight. The local coffee shop put my photo back up. Folks who'd been manipulated into supporting Scarlett now apologized, some in tears, for ever doubting my family. The FBI connected her to at least a dozen property scams and to Marcus's disappearance. She was arrested at dawn, news crews everywhere, her white Bentley looking a whole lot less shiny behind police tape. Sitting through her trial, watching her try to spin herself as a grieving mother who just snapped, I couldn't help but feel sorry for her. In a way, her pain had twisted into something toxic. She'd started with a mission to protect, but somewhere along the line, she decided her cause was worth destroying anyone who stood in her way. I stood up in court not to call for vengeance, but to say, Scarlett, you lost your son, and that pain drove you to try and control every risk. But you destroyed Marcus Kane, you tried to destroy my family, and you turned neighbors into enemies. Safety doesn't come from control, it comes from trust. She got 25 years for murder and fraud, maybe parole in 18, but nobody cheered. Even her old friends just looked hollow, like the soul had been sucked out of the room. After the trial, the community changed. The same folks who'd once backed Scarlett rebuilt the pond, renamed it the Marcus Kane Memorial, and set up a yearly festival celebrating neighborhood traditions. I got elected HOA president, not because I wanted power, but because people finally understood that real safety comes from neighbors looking out for each other, not one person with a clipboard and a God complex. Sheriff Wells and we'd sit by the water at dusk sometimes, watching the koi swim again, talking about everything we'd lost and what we'd managed to save. You know what the best part is? Watching families gather by the pond, kids skipping stones like nothing ever happened. The water's back, the lies are gone, and the community finally learned that sometimes justice, like water, takes its time, but it always finds a way. So tell me, where do you draw the line between protecting your neighbors and controlling them? Share your story below, because in the end, the fight for what matters is never just about property. It's about standing up for what's right, even when you're the only one left who remembers why it matters.